We'd like to officially call to order the Bolton Conservation Commission meeting, open public meeting for Tuesday, February 4th, 2020. And as always, we'll start with the roll call. I'm Brian Barabee.
Emily Winter.
Jeffrey Bryan.
William Payne.
Kip McInerney.
Greg Maddox.
The Bolton Conservation Commission will now consider a request for an extension of a permit for orders of conviction. Go ahead.
Before we do that,
Yep.
just because we're a couple minutes
Yeah.
early, we're gonna have Greg just talk about our All Trail Club,
Gotcha.
and then we'll roll into that.
Thank you. You head to the, all right. So, up first tonight.
Well, thank you, Rebecca, for asking me to come here. I believe Rebecca has mentioned to everyone the All Trails Club. It's an outgrowth of the Bolton Trails Committee. And just a little bit of background, the Bolton Trails Committee worked real hard in the last several years to get updated maps for all the properties in town, which are all available on the website. It looks something like this. And one part of that project was measuring all of the trails in town for distance. That's something that I took on for the Trails Committee. And now we know exactly how many miles there are in town and how many segments. And there's actually probably 47 to 48 miles of trails in town. And there's over 500 segments in town. And what the Bolton Trails Committee came up with was the All Trails Club. And residents can apply for it, they can find information for it. I have a couple of these if you guys want to look. There's a little description of what the All Trails Club is on the first page. The second page are all the trail, or the primary properties and the mileage and the segments. And then residents would probably be an all online thing through the Trail Committee website. You can go in and fill this out probably digitally and send it into the Trails Committee. And you could even get a digital certificate, which is the last page there. And for the first 100 people that do it, we have these patches that we can give people. You guys want to take a look at those. And one thing that I'm really excited about for this is that it will help. It helps. It's not just doing all the trails and getting your name on a list. It's encouraging residents to go to all the different trails in town, because I think we tend to go to all the trails in our local area that we can walk to, but this will encourage people to go to all the trails. And the first people that have completed this officially are some of our local Boy Scouts and their fathers. So I think that's a really good community offering. I'm happy to take questions.
So Greg will be doing a rollout of an article in the paper and posting this online within the next month or so, or within
Couple
the next
months, yeah.
couple months. And like he said, his son is also a member of the Boy Scouts, so touching upon that, I'm gonna send around a letter for the commission to sign as a thank you for doing the Eagle Scout project over on Anymore, which was the kiosk and repairing the bridges and building some bridges. So both Greg and his son are obviously avid trail users and volunteers on our trails, but I just wanted him to come in to share the details now that they've all been ironed out, and now it's a concrete project obviously that's moving forward regarding the All Trails Club. So it was memorialized both in a public meeting with the commission, and so everyone's aware and on the same page of the potential hopeful influx of users on all the trails versus just our more highly used trails.
And Town Hall was fine with it, as far as whatever, small component, yes, yeah, usually everybody there was great. Any questions from the audience?
I don't have a question, I have a statement, because it's pretty impressive to hear the number I just heard. 47 miles of trail network, we only have 62 miles of roadway in town.
Right.
Put it in perspective.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
We should do a roadway walk.
Yeah, and the town's only about approximately 4.5 by 4.5 miles. So it is impressive.
That's impressive. Game time, all right.
We appreciate you coming
Yeah,
in.
thank you, you're working on putting it together.
I look forward to participating, I'm sure. Hopefully I'll.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
I want,
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
Really.
Did you, Greg, do you need this copy as well?
No, you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Do you want one? Why don't I do the full one?
Hopefully you don't walk within 100 feet of the wetlands without notifying you.
Are you ready for 401? Okay. All right, so the Bolton Conservation Commission will now consider the request for an extension of permit for the orders of condition regarding the property located at 401 Main Street filed by Megan Moran for the proposed restoration work previously permitted.
As a reminder to those on the commission who were not here, this was, Brian said, restoration work that was required by the previous property owner, or property user on behalf of the property owner. It's still the same property owner, different business being run there, so it's a new contact, and they were not aware of the restoration work that needed to occur. I had sent them a reminder that there were conditions was set to expire, and they've asked for an extension so that they can start that restoration work, since the changeover caused some issues in getting that done.
This was the clearing out in the woods that was basically
Yes.
getting renaturalized
Yep.
was the biggest part to it.
Yeah, so it was being planted and then just keeping everything out. So when I'd gone on the site visit to just confirm everything was the way it was or better, it certainly naturalized a bit, but because where they had placed their fencing, it was still being trampled, so I just reminded them of pulling their fence back. So we walked the line that they needed to pull it back to, they pulled it back, and then they'll continue to work in spring when they can do the plantings,
Yeah.
if the extension is granted.
Yeah, and they were amenable to the whole process. They
Yes.
just-
Yep.
Questions, issues, anybody here comment on this tonight? All right, is it simply a yay or a nay? All right.
Yep.
All right, so, we'll do a roll call vote, right? For a simple yay or nay vote for extending the orders of condition for 401 Main Street. A yay vote being an agreement of extending the order, and actually, did we have a time frame that was asked for?
No, it was my understanding when I spoke with her that they're planting in spring or early summer and then in fall, so we'll have the two growing
Seasons.
seasons.
So it'd be a 2-year extension, I mean, it's a 1-year extension, but basically a 2-year extension,
I would say
right?
that would be
Yeah,
fair.
that's normal. All right, so a yay vote, we'll take a roll call vote, a yay vote saying that you would agree to a 2-year extension for 401 Main Street, nay being that you would be opposed to an extension for 401 Main Street. Kip, we'll start with you.
Yay.
All right, Bill?
Yay.
Yay.
Emily?
Yay.
And, yeah, unanimously. That's
Oh,
no.
Next door, right? It's like, right next door, right? Somewhere next door.
401? No, this is,
The one across from the church.
this is on the corner of Burnham and Main.
Cultivate,
Yes.
cultivate counseling, the farm.
Oh, yeah. No, I know. I know it. Try to place it on
Oh, yeah, I forget the hour, I was there.
164 Green first, right? All right.
a strange place.
The Bolton Conservation Commission will now continue the public hearing under the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent filed by Dave Sadowski for the proposed addition on the existing single-family home located at 164 Green Road, Bolton, Mass. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, board members, agent, and audience. Again, my name is Dave Sadowski. I'm the principal of DJ and Associates. Since our last meeting, we've had a site walk that almost everyone here was at. There was some recommendations to revise the plan. The recommendations move things more than 25 feet away, the driveway entrance, the wall, and also some language that was, I guess, Scrivener's error. There was the language wasn't correct on one of the boundary lines, so that was changed to the left on that. So the revised plans were resubmitted to the agent, and we're here to continue the hearing.
Right.
Along with me is the owner of the property, Mr. Calhoun. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Calling out.
Any thoughts, questions?
Anybody have any specific thoughts and or initial questions?
Can you point out what the changes are?
I certainly can. Where it says BBW next to the brook itself, that now, instead of edge of BBW, it now says edge of wetlands, which is the correct length. Do you want to see a bigger plan?
No, I got it.
Should have had some in there. I mean, I dropped off 4 of them. I think you should have had them in your package. After that, there's a 25-foot offset. That had been 22. The retaining wall for the driveway has been tucked in, and the driveway has been relocated further to the left of the drawing. Let me see if I can find it. To the west. The wall was moved to the west 3 feet, and the driveway was also moved.
Okay, so,
So in this area.
Yeah, I see it right here.
Yeah, and then this was scooched over, and then the driveway itself was brought over, so everything is outside of the 25 foot. Instead it was 22 previously, and this was, now it's edge of wetlands instead of edge of BBW. Those were the changes that were done.
Bill, they're noted, so that's what I had sent regarding my comments, so the 25 stated, I mean, the BBW line on the first set of plans says buffer zone, and I had just said, you can show 100 foot, 25.
Yeah, I see that. Okay.
So the plans were revised and they were re-stamped with wet stamp.
So I had some comments on some of the notes in the plan too, that you had sent, but those are sort of things that could be added in as conditions, so I caught them after we had spoken. One of the bylaw notes talks about, see the bylaw for exemptions. And that's what the commission needs to determine is this a structure that is going within a pre-disturbed area? So is that exempt under the bylaw and the Wetlands Protection Act? The house was built in 1978, so that means that it does meet the necessary requirements to trigger the scope of alternatives under the riverfront section of the Wetlands Protection Act, which is 10.58.2, which states that an expansion of the existing single-family home built or recorded before August 1st, 1996. However, there needs to be no significant adverse impacts within the 200-foot riverfront area, which is shown on the plans, outer riparian line, inner riparian line. So that's the 100 and 200 foot. And it states the issuing authority may allow alteration up to 5,000 square feet or 10%, whichever is greater, for that home that is built on or before October 6th, 1997, provided that a minimum of 100 feet wide vegetation of undisturbed vegetation is provided, or the existing vegetation is preserved or extended to the maximum extent. Or the proposed work shall not impair groundwater or surface water quality by incorporating erosion controls and other measures to attenuate non-point pollution. So that's what the commission has to determine, whether or not this is allowable under a bylaw. And the reason why I just quoted basically the scope of alternatives and the exemption was because in the notes it did point out, see the bylaw for exemption, meaning they felt that it met measures to be exempt and therefore allowed in conditionable.
So if we can't keep that 100 feet of undisturbed vegetation, what does it mean by when it says, what does it say actually? The maximum
So it
amount
says a
possible?
minimum of 100 feet, 100 foot wide vegetation, 100 foot wide strip of undisturbed vegetation or existing vegetation preserved or extended to the maximum extent. So meaning, if the commission saw that currently it's lawn, so it's maintaining that lawn, or maintaining it to the maximum extent. So it's up to the commission to determine whether or not that's disturbed. And the, yes.
Is it open for me to comment yet, or?
Please, yeah, no, please.
All right, again, Dave Sadowski, Principal of DJ and Associates for the record. Wouldn't we also look at the benefits of the resource area as it exists too, as far as if it was a wooded forest as compared to a manicured lawn? How much actually groundwater and or movement of water across that soil surface, how much actually do you get for a benefit from a lawn as compared to a wooded area or whatever? That's,
Yeah, what the different topography depending on
and
what's going on.
I also believe that under the exemptions, garages are exempt within that 100 foot, if we look at the bylaw by DEP.
If it is a disturbed area, and that's what I was mentioning in the beginning, is you can build, you can put additions on, you can put sheds on within disturbed areas, so it's up to the commission to determine whether or not the lawn is seen as a disturbed area. And if it is a disturbed area, is it still included within that vegetation, or is it would need to stay vegetated and then the disturbance would be beyond that? So that's what they're looking at, is what's the disturbed area, what can be done, and then the vegetated area between to buffer within that inner riparian.
Other questions?
How long has the lawn been there? Since you've been there? Since like
1978.
78, so the
It
lawn's
was,
been there?
it was a garden before.
It was a garden, so you were.
It was a farm.
Was it- yeah,
That
no,
was,
it was
that
a
was,
farm,
that
so
was,
it was
that
a-
was the farm, that was the garden for the farm.
Okay, and you were just,
My other question too, I know last time we talked about you wanted to expand the kitchen, but interior aside, what, was there other reasoning why you couldn't rotate it in an L shape basically and have the addition put on that way?
Ledge.
The ledge, okay, thank you.
The ledge is-
The ledge,
Just
there's
ledge
ledge,
in the
there's
rear.
ledge about 6 feet off the back corner of the
what a
house.
surprise.
They went to put the septic tank in, it originally was supposed to be on the side that we're discussing L,
And it then got moved to the middle of where the deck is, which also hit ledge, and then it got moved to where it now exists to the left side of the back of the house.
I mean, I roughly, this, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm looking at like 2,000 square feet of alteration with the driveway and the house, is that
That would be a
accurate?
fair number.
Okay. So if
Yeah,
we're
the
talking,
addi-
if we're
the
going
addition
down that,
itself's
if we're
only
going down that
800
avenue, it's like about 2,000 square feet of alteration, including site work and, I guess my only concern would be runoff from the roof, cause we're taking a pervious surface and we're putting an impervious in place, within that buffer zone.
Right, what was just lower.
So what is the driveway material, proposed driveway?
Gravel.
Is it gravel?
It'll probably be hot top as a finish in the end. It's right now, it's old hot top, it's broken up. Hot top from
That
1970.
driveway,
No, the new driveway, I think the
that you're
commission
talking
was
about
asking you.
doesn't
Yeah.
exist yet, right?
Yeah,
Is that
correct.
That would be hard top
Yeah,
instead of gravel?
that would be the desire, yes. Only because we live in New England and trying to get around in the winter
Kinda
time
hard to
on
move.
gravel. It's a little rough. But I have gravel driveways at the house, so, I mean, it's just not fun.
Any thoughts, questions from the audience tonight? Anybody here to comment? Rebecca, any further thoughts?
I've stated my comments. The only other comment I would make, just looking at the site and looking at the proximate resource area, even though it's an area that's been in agriculture previously, and it's currently maintained as lawn. My only other thought was to reduce disturbance, but I think at the end of the day, it's still going to be the same extent, would be to not have a foundation and then having a garage there, but just having a slab if that's possible, and then putting the garage or expanding your existing garage at the rear. But I think realistically, you're still gonna be causing the same amount of disturbance within the riparian area.
Extending the existing garage would run into the septic tank.
I was talking about the other way or to the back.
Oh,
Again, just because I'm looking at the wetland resource areas, but I do understand about now it's been lawn for some time. But I'm just looking at other areas as well.
Any further thoughts?
Lawn's a lawn, it's been there for a long time.
I mean, does it help at all if the BVW is allowed to grow up more naturally? Does that make a difference to us?
What do you mean?
So we're 25 feet off the BVW, right? And if you got runoff coming from the house or driveway or anything like that, does it help, does it assist the wetland if it's something other than lawn benefit? I know forest absorbs rainwater better than lawn does.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So does it, I mean, if we put a restriction that stays more naturally, you know?
Oh, to
something-
no longer, to just let it
Yes.
renaturalize, or let it naturalize.
Right, I mean, I wonder if you'd be
Yeah.
open to that, if that would assist the wetland at all at that point. I think there's something to be said for trying to keep this property in his ownership rather than see it developed at some point. I think it's so close to the conservation area. I honestly believe he is looking to stay there till he drops dead, right? So we might be here for another 40, 50 years. we work really hard to try to save open space, and I think it's worth it to us if we can do something to maintain that wetland. And, you know, and if we are disturbing it, and I know we are disturbing it at this point, is there something we can do to offset that?
That would be a good condition, if the applicant would be agreeable to that. I would say so.
To what extent? I don't wanna lose the looks of the.
So what
What
he's,
if we-
what he's talking about
Yeah.
is this 25, so not your blueberry,
Yeah,
so keep that out. But this 25-foot line,
yeah,
so leaving this,
the
except
old,
for
the
the
cow,
blueberry,
the old cow pasture area.
this low area.
Yeah,
Yep.
the old cow pasture area.
Letting that just naturalize.
Did you go to this?
But then you're still
You've seen this,
keeping
Yeah.
everything outside of that. And once you get back here,
And
so
this
it's
is all-
25 feet from the
What's
edge
here?
of wet.
It is 25
where? I'm
feet
sorry.
from
What's here?
what
This
the
conservation?
driveway is.
Is this
Yeah.
Right,
conservation?
and it's 25 feet
It's really
from.
just
To what extent, I mean, can I
Yes.
still keep the trees out of
This
it,
is
or?
the-
And this
Or
is
you
all
want
wood
everything
in
to
here.
I'm not sure
Yeah.
how,
This-
I'm
Yeah.
trying to define it at this point.
go
Yeah,
into-
and
I think if it's just something that we
Oh, and
can
hill, parking lots,
help.
I mean, I want the
Resource
woods to
area.
pick up sticks.
Let's put it this way. The commission could also condition, because this is blueberry here, planting some sort of shrub that maybe has a secondary use as well, whether you're harvesting things from it or not.
Like
But a
blueberries or
native-
something else.
Right,
Okay.
something native in this area, so you're
Mhm.
maintaining it in a sense that you're not spraying anything, you're not really fertilizing or anything like
No, our
that,
blueberries are all natural.
but it's not lawn, so it's
Mhm.
allowing, like Bill was saying, a little bit more of that.
It
Absorption.
helps absorb some of the runoff.
Mhm. No, I wouldn't be against putting more blueberries down in there. My father would appreciate that.
So what I would say is, on the edge of 25,
Mhm.
do your blueberries and then let the inside naturalize. Does that make sense?
I might even say, I'd love to get it to the edge of 25. I appreciate that you guys moved in the driveway to keep it out of the 25.
The 25's
But,
coming all the way up.
but I was gonna say realistically, you're gonna wanna be able to get out and around.
Get out and around.
Just the corner of the addition, and, you know, if you're bringing anything from the driveway around the back of the house, depending.
The 25 comes through the blueberries, through the line.
Yeah, so this comes,
Right,
You have to
right.
go up the hill.
But I just wanna make sure you could actually get, I mean, practicably to be able to get around the house,
right,
especially in this
5-foot
corner.
offset or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
Okay,
you know,
well,
basically a 5-foot offset, or
So we're
something
like
along
20
those
feet
lines.
off the wetlands.
so the
20
other,
feet would be a good buffer.
well, we need the 25.
Yeah, we want the
But we're
25
saying for
ideally,
the
but,
plantings,
Yeah, that's what I meant,
yeah,
20
to
foot plant.
give you, at least to be able to walk around the outside of the driveway and the side of the house if you need to maintain or deal with things.
my other couple of comments that I'll make quick are regarding the erosion control. I see that you have straw bale, and silt fence, I think we're leaning more towards compost wattles or straw wattles at this point, with the silt fence as well. And then I didn't see a limit of work on here either.
Yeah, there isn't one. That could be added to the plan, as a condition.
And then it says disturbed area shall be reseeded, that can be added as a condition as well, but I just wanted a clarification of what you're seeding there. Okay, so those were my comments.
So by condition, what do you mean where they're gonna store the stuff? Where they're gonna put the dirt and everything that they dig up from the foundation, that sort of stuff?
Well, they have that
The stuff house
in the
up
plan
there,
already, they have stock, they actually have a lot of good comments, but it was just changing, but that, like I said, can be a condition, and it can be shown on the as-built regarding straw bale to wattle, and silt fence for the erosion control.
And showing the erosion control.
showing the limit of work, which is the erosion control line. On the plan. Clarify. See, what were you talking about with the seed mix? What you're reseeding with the disturbed area?
I wasn't just planning on disturbing anything besides lawn, so I was just gonna,
Okay.
lawn's grass seed
Okay,
was my intention. I'm not going any further than that.
Okay.
And the bales are gonna be in front of anything that's off the lawn, so I wasn't gonna
okay.
impact any of that.
Yeah, the compost filter tubes is something DOT specifies now on all projects. I asked Shirley where to get them, and they couldn't tell me. They said, we just write that as a condition. I said, well, where do you buy them? Who blows and who fills the compost into the, they said, well, we can't answer that, but we specify it.
Yeah, we can't tell you,
No, but they said they didn't even know where anyways. They said, we just specify it as a condition. We're not sure where
I
actually
know
at
you
it.
can find the straw ones. I've seen those.
yeah, those
Yeah.
you can get online.
Palletized, yeah.
Well,
Looks
before I
easier
like
to
using
carry.
straw bales because they wouldn't promote growth of invasive species as a regular hay bale does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just trying to think of.
My other question is, do
Go
we
ahead.
want do we wanna vote this evening? Or, excuse me, close this evening and then vote once we receive if the commission wants updated plans prior? Or do you want to vote, and then if it's for condition, and then contingent upon receiving
Contingent upon
updated
receiving.
plans?
Okay, I'll put that out to everybody. Did everybody just catch what Rebecca was saying?
Yes.
Alright.
Well, I can't speak for everybody.
Yes,
Well,
yeah. If we were looking for updated plans, we're basically just looking for limit of work, right? And then
Yeah,
any,
to show limit of work, detail, just updated to show wattle versus the bale.
yeah,
That question was answered. And then the blueberries.
yeah. So we can basically condition all of that
Yeah.
and just say,
So it will be blueberries. I mean,
Yes,
well,
are you,
yeah.
is that what you want,
You prefer
or-
that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
alright,
No, not we.
It could be, you know, another choice that you came up with, like blueberries.
Well, yeah, blueberries will work. I mean, raspberries, anything along that lines would work with my old man. I mean, so if you just wanna leave it to a vegetation,
Something
a
native.
fruit
I
or.
was saying, I
yeah.
put a
Then we
native
could go with something like that.
species,
Sounds good.
And have a little bit,
Blueberry.
my neighbors have
Blueberry.
bees, so they won't mind some extra blossoms.
Along.
My bees will be happy also.
alright. So, in theory, if we were to close and vote, everybody would be fine with voting tonight?
Yes.
Alright,
Yes.
if I'm looking at the plans as they exist now, and we're talking about possible, conditions to be changed or added, switched. The one we talked about was allowing, it's a 20-foot section off of the buffer zone to be naturalized or maintained with native fruit-bearing species, and that's basically the coming in 20 foot, it's 25 cut staff, but just gives them 5 feet to get around, right? There was one, if possible, two is to put in, if you do wanna use a hard top, there's impervious hard top now, go ahead.
Can I double question?
Yeah, go
Just to
ahead.
make sure I'm clear. So the 20 foot is not from the river's edge, you want the 20 foot to come into the lawn?
Yeah,
Yeah, if possible.
So the 20-foot.
That cuts right through the middle of the blueberries then.
So that's why I was saying you
To
pop it
maintain
down.
as, yeah.
So because you already have those planted there, we're including that within the area that you're now
So I'm
planting.
giving up the maintained lawn is the,
A
is the
portion of it,
buffer.
because you're not meeting that 100-foot vegetated, because you're disturbing this. So that's why we're asking the little bit of give and take here. So you're reducing the lawn on that side, keeping the blueberries that are there, but you're keeping this lawn back here and up here. In
Pretty
this.
tight as a visual.
Yeah, that's a,
Visually looking at the residents, I mean, it's gonna look a little like tight compared to the way it
currently sits.
currently
depending-
would sit even with the addition on it.
So there's 5 feet difference to here. Cause you're putting it on the 20, not the 25. So it's still. But
Can I see what you've drawn?
if you can make out what I've done.
Could I, in
Go ahead,
return,
please.
instead of giving up the lawn and stuff, go to guttering the house and doing the tile well and putting the collected water of the entire house back into the ground instead?
Like doing an infiltration,
Yeah,
like a
like
dry
a
well.
dry well.
Groundwater recharge
It's up to the commission.
structure.
I think that that would look structurally better and, I mean, more beneficial to the ground than vegetation even, because now, I mean, I'm gonna collect it off the entire house and put it back into the ground into the dry well. As a direct feed. Instead of runoff.
It's expensive.
To gutter it and put in a well.
You know, I'm not saying.
I just
it's not a
think
good
looks
idea.
wise, I think it'll look better than giving up the lawn to the right of the house. I think that,
That's a.
I mean, I got a red maple tree in that zone, I got, there's. I'm just throwing it out there to see if that's, I think it will collect more than putting vegetation in on the strip.
Would be a direct groundwater recharge.
What do you mean by that?
So
What's gonna happen is
Does
that
the
there's a
commission then
system,
wanna
there's
continue
a
this and
structure
think
that's in the
about it?
ground and the
Just
water
because
comes
we're
from the
running
roof and goes into that
for the first
structure.
time,
It'll
just
disperse
not
into where the
talk about
groundwater
it.
elevation is, and it'll help the water maintain
So
in
if
the
we get like
ground.
humongous rainstorm.
Right, it will go down into the ground instead of
So
running into the
remember
brook.
that He's got some kind of, holding tank there at that point, and then
Right.
it filters out more slowly.
So it filters out.
So you're not getting runoff over the.
Filters out underneath the surface of the existing lawn.
Back into the water table.
Right.
Right. So
The other,
instead of
the
a
other
whole
way,
tank,
it will
it'll
just run
into-
across and go to the brook.
As opposed to running down the lawn into the brook.
Correct.
It'll filter down the ledge.
Hmm?
It'll filter down the ledge.
Yeah, and then go into the brook,
Yeah, but it's filtering.
yeah. Suppose the brook moves.
Has a tendency.
Well, that's why we have.
5 acres
the
or more, I
offset
think
in the
farm status
service
can move
area
the brook.
and we don't
I'm just
allow
saying,
the
suppose, the
like
brook all of a
like
sudden
the
decides it wants to
research
come
area.
this way and, that's, we're not talking about hearsay, but.
Yeah.
I'm personally
Yes.
good with the roof thing,
Yeah, the roof thing sounds.
honestly.
Sounds great.
My biggest concern is like
How did they-
fertilizers and stuff like that used on the lawn, I
Right.
think. I'm
Yeah.
not as concerned about,
I do not fertilize mine.
yeah, so I
It
mean,
grows
that,
fast enough.
our
Yeah.
only
Too
concern at
fast,
this point
mostly.
is runoff from the roof, right? So we're trying to, filter the water instead of, right? I mean,
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's what the
instead
bushes
of
and
leaving
trees
the
and-
whole front lawn
Right.
2 feet tall. Our goal is to filter the water that's running off, so.
There's a question here.
Yes.
Connor Nagle, 156 Green Road. The roof runoff today, along with ours next door, doesn't go to the brook. It comes out the driveway, down the side of the road, tears out the side of the road, and DPW keep replacing the large stone. A recharge that Pete's proposing is gonna put it right back in the ground and filter it before it gets to the brook.
That's right, because it does, from that site, it does go that way,
Yes.
as opposed to that way. So the brook's not gonna move, it stays the same.
All right.
All right.
So along with that, we'll come back to that one in 1 second, all right? So the other things we're looking at was the switch, so, just new plans, we need, showing limited work, right? Switching straw bale to straw wattle, right, along with them. If possible, if you wanna do a hard top, there's a pervious hard top, it's a pervious pavement that you would suggest to use in these areas, and we'd probably put something like that in the conditions, to either go gravel or pervious pavement, your choice. And then, so it's just a question of that buffer zone, which, I'd be fine considering some sort of recharge system. The only thing is, I think we'd wanna see that, if possible, drawn out. I hate to draw it out, but Rebecca had made the point too, of possibly continuing to next meeting. And if you would be fine with that, I know, 'cause hate to write out too many conditions and try to write too many conditions into it now. But, I mean, willing to hear thoughts. If others are working, I
Well,
mean.
it's his idea, so.
Yeah, well, but I mean, if you think we can condition it now, and you could write it down in a way that I can actually say it,
You're gonna have to draw it in.
we could try to go through it all now.
You're gonna have to
Where
draw
would
it
you
in.
be locating the dry well? Because that's important to know now. If the commission's going to try and condition this. Or is that something you need to look at?
Wherever it's best, wherever it would best suit the,
Okay. So
The
as much as
condition-
we don't wanna
the-
continue it,
I
I
would-
think it would be beneficial.
I
if
mean,
we look
I
at the
think right here in
drainage.
the front,
in the center, in the front.
right in the
lawn.
center of
Is
the
there a
front,
bench
because,
there too, though?
it's gonna split
No,
the
that
two.
was part of what Billy got us built up.
Okay.
What?
That was part of the, when they did that, when they finished the house, that was part of the hillside that's built
Right,
up.
right.
It was all Billy Vadas
Yeah.
pushing it up back in the day.
So you're saying between the,
The two
Between the
stone
two-
wall,
yeah,
the front
yeah.
lawn section,
Yeah,
to keep
yeah.
it away, but, get it back under.
So I would like to see that on the plans, just for clarity purposes, and the commission can.
Can it be added into the conditions so that we could vote tonight and then bring
So
it by just for
we can-
approval?
We can vote tonight contingent upon receiving updated plans, so that's still possible, but we wouldn't formally close until the next meeting so that you could still submit those plans. Do you understand?
Mhm. When is your next meeting?
The 18th.
2 weeks, right, yeah.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now.
Two
It's
weeks.
pretty close.
Washington's birthday.
Yes. So, but that, I mean, that's up to the commission too, they may not wanna vote or wanna condition this right now.
The 12th
We
is
have about
Lincoln's and the 22nd is
5
mine.
minutes to do so,
Yeah,
Journey
less
back
than
to-
that actually.
yeah. What's everyone's thoughts?
By everyone.
I don't like voting contingencies, but that's just a personal preference.
Well, I don't like speaking contingencies and trying to make sure I get all the wording right. That said, would it be possible for us to continue the next time?
I would like to see, actually.
But, yeah, I know.
Actually,
And then we would be able to close it.
I actually would like to see it on the plan, where you'd wanna put it, just to be, I believe you could, that's a good idea, it was your idea to put it in there, but I'd like to see it sort of
Good.
drawn out.
Could I ask a question? Would
Sure.
it be possible to get a straw vote that wouldn't count?
No.
Could find out.
No,
After the hearing's closed?
no.
No.
You can't vote after the hearing is closed.
Yeah, no, we really can't.
How about
unfortunately.
how about
I mean,
how about
after
if
the
I worded
discussion,
that
yeah.
differently? How about,
No, so we'll
people?
vote, it sounds like you're okay with the continuation, I don't put words in your mouth, but you're okay, so
Yeah.
we can close next meeting. Okay,
If they think
Yeah,
it's favorable or not.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I will say, some of the things we were looking at, it's under the threshold for the square
and
footage
then I
that
can
can be
draft the
disturbed.
conditions, so we're good.
I think everybody agreed that it is on existing lawn, that's been existing lawn as far back as any of us can
And that mound was created
remember.
during
Yeah,
the building of the original
yeah,
house.
and
It's not,
it's not opposed to the concept, we
Planning
just
for
need to
lawn.
have exactly what we're saying. If that makes sense.
Thank
I'd
you.
like to ask for continuation to the next meeting
All right.
on the 18th for a
Thank-
vote.
We will
Like-
be on at 7 p.m.
I'd like to make a motion that we continue the public hearing for 164 Green Road till our next public hearing, February the 18th at 7 o'clock PM.
Yep, here in the Holden building.
Here,
Excellent.
here in the lovely Houghton building. Second,
second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right,
Thank you.
we'll get you up
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So,
See you next.
You're up next.
yeah, we have a good 10 minutes.
Oh, this is.
Oh,
this
you might wanna get to-
That's
goes
just
to
next.
Rebecca.
Yeah, give that to Rebecca.
So,
Rebecca, this is
yeah.
next time.
Miss Winner.
Oh,
Yes. So I am going to officially recuse myself from the next public hearing as I am actually technically an abutter.
Did you know?
Yeah, I got your letter and everything.
You'll be thoroughly impressed.
I'm gonna go sit in the audience, I'm gonna heckle and make fun of people, it's great.
Who's gonna lead?
What?
Winter.
Emily Winters, come on in.
Chair.
I am trying to find the,
It's the,
Oh, I'm sorry, it's out of order, sorry.
over here?
it is out of order?
Yeah, right? No, sorry.
Right
Yeah,
here.
alright.
Okay.
Yeah, it was
I
out of order.
apologize.
You didn't apologize to me.
The Bolton
I didn't
Conservation,
Only to Emily.
Thanks.
the Bolton Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing under the provisions of, Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, Wetlands Protection Act, and Riverfront Act, and under the Bolton Wetland Bylaw, Chapter 233, to consider the notice of intent filed by Bree Sullivan on behalf of the Town of Bolton Department of Public Works for the proposed replacement of a partially collapsed stone and HDP culvert on Wattaquatic Hill Road over an intermittent stream.
Very good, thank you. I know you guys are pressed for time. So I'm Joe Litt, Public Works Director, and a little history of this culvert is it's an old farm culvert. It's been there, from the old colonial days when Wattaquatic was first put in use. The culvert has collapsed in a couple of areas, and as you can see as you're driving the roadway, so is the roadway sloughed down. And the whole northerly, northwesterly edge, revetment or stone wall that's there has collapsed in various areas. What we use as an approach here is very similar to what we used on Long Hill Road, with the two really big exceptions. One is this is an intermittent brook, and we're not required to meet stormwater crossing standards with regards to animal migration, but we are anyways. So what's driving the size of this culvert is the hydrology that contributes to it, and we're still putting a gravel floor in, so any critters who do want to use it are able to. This is an emergency repair. We actually had the design of this on last year's town meeting and the expectation of bringing the construction on this year's town meeting. Timetable is that we're hoping, and I heard the last one, so I'm gonna lay right on the table, that we give you enough information this evening that we can continue to the next hearing, at which time we're gonna hope that you're going to close and issue an order of conditions, because I want the order of conditions to be part of the bid documents, which are gonna be going out in the end of February. Okay, bids will be open in March, and the reason being is that we want to have a real number on the warrant when we go to town meeting, as opposed to an abstract number. Though my estimate and the engineer's estimate, scary, on a $500,000 project is within $2,000 each. So we're pretty proud of that. The other big difference from Long Hill Road is Long Hill Road was really just a span across an outlet from a pond, and was done in the wet. The pond main outlet elevation of the pond was controlled at 117. This one, as an intermittent brook, most summers goes dry. This work will be done in July and August. And that's the ideal is literally being done in the dry. That's not to say that we don't need erosion controls, of course we do. And that's not to say that we wouldn't want to still want to hold back some water should there be a flash event during construction. So that being said, this is Mike Rizzo from Bayside Engineering and Breeze absence, Mike is gonna carry us through this evening and give you all the information so we can close next meeting.
Yeah, Bree's on medical leave, so hopefully I can bring this through for you folks. These are the cards.
Thank you.
For the record, excuse me, my name's Michael Rizzo, I work for Bayside Engineering. I'm here on a notice of intent for the town of Bolton for the replacement and reconstruction of an existing stone masonry culvert located on, excuse me if I mess this name up, Aquatic Hill Road.
The hardest part, you're right.
The culvert has a north to south flow. The existing culvert is 66 feet long in length. The upland side is primarily forest and orchard, and the land is open space and rural residential development, I think. As Joe had mentioned, the existing culvert has collapsed in the past on the upland side, which caused some impoundment and some water to back up. The town replaced it, or did a repair, and put a 12-inch high-density polyethylene pipe through the culvert to be able to maintain flow. We're gonna replace that culvert. We're gonna replace it with a reinforced concrete box culvert with a dimension of a clear dimensional width of 8 feet, and the height is 6.5 feet, of which 2 feet of it will be buried into the ground, so the vertical opening will be 4'6", so it'll be a clear opening of 4'6" in height and 8 feet in width. The stream bed will have material that is a wash material, crushed granular, meeting the gradation requirements of minimum 2.5 inches passing the 100%, 100% passing the 2.5 inch sieve.
That's control velocity without erosion.
Right. The plan, as you can see, the BBW is identified by these wetland flags along the northerly side of the road from this point to this point. On the southerly side, the flag come around here and go like that. We are along the bottom of the slope on both sides, the north and south, be lined with compost filter tubes outlined in blue, following the bottom of the slope from here to here.
We do know where mine.
And on the southerly
Crazy.
You're
side,
not gonna let your source be known, huh?
they'll run from here, on Berlin Road, all the way around here. So the entire project area will be lined and protected with compost filter tubes up to and including the bottom of slope. The, along with the culvert there'll be two concrete block modular retaining walls. There'll be one on the north side, it's about 77 feet long, it'll run from here to here. That'll catch the slope here so that we can mitigate and minimize or impact, minimize any impacts to the boarding vegetation.
That's a deliberate structure that's replacing a rock, a boulder rubble wall, so it's not adding a new revetment. It's actually just fortifying what was there.
So that wall will be 77 feet, goes from here to here. On the southerly side, there'll also be two retaining walls, they're 14 feet each side of the culvert. Again, the concrete modular block retaining walls. The existing roadway will be reconstructed with new hot mix asphalt, super paved, Mass DOT approved items for the roadway. So it'll be 6.5 inches of pavement, 4 inches of dense graded crushed stone, over 8 inches of gravel. Project length is approximately 400 feet long. What else? So, and as you know, Berlin Road comes in and enters into Waterquark Hill Road at a very flat skew. It's a dangerous intersection, it's not safe. They have cars entering the exit, entering at that angle like that. So we're looking to tee up Berlin Road more 90 degrees to Waterquark.
Aquatic.
Thank you. Road, we can put a stop sign here.
Yes, people use that as a
I think
yield
that's a good
all the
idea.
time.
So we can tee that up.
Every
Yes.
opportunity we have.
Put a stop sign.
Yes.
Every place we have an opportunity to straighten out
A
street
blinking
intersection,
stop sign.
we're gonna do it across town.
Yes.
This was the
Yeah.
first thing that presented itself.
Are you proposing to revegetate the area that you're going to be shifting away from?
Yep, so in teeing this up, we have all this impervious paved area now will be removed. It'll be graded and loam and seeded, so we'll pick up a substantial amount of impervious material to help with the wetland.
So as a matter of full disclosure, one of the other initiatives in town a couple of years ago was Complete Streets, do you remember that?
Yeah.
So with that, we've also accommodated sidewalks to continue water aquatic, which now ends at, as part of
That
the,
man road, yeah.
part of the Mass Works project, that's ending at Memorial. That will give us the ability in the future for a future project
Yeah.
to extend the sidewalk out and get it over to the orchard and then up, and then kick to the overlook property.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we're not building that, so in the future, if you say,
Yeah.
you gave us loom, we might take it away in 3 or 4 years.
The proposed culvert is 44 feet in length. So the proposed roadway will be 26 feet, which pretty much matches existing roadway width, consisting of 2 12-foot travel lanes, 2 1-foot paved shoulders. The existing roadway has all open drainage. We're gonna maintain that, so we have overland flow without any point source discharges to any of the wetlands. But what this also does with the 44-foot culvert, it provides additional space on each side for a future sidewalk.
And in the meantime,
And
we're
also
still
will
putting
help-
guardrail in.
Yeah, there'll be guardrail reconstructed from beginning of the limit of work at Berlin, come all the way down here and terminate here. And guardrail would go from here back here, so it's about 400 feet. It'll be wood post with WB steel rail.
I've been here 2.5 years, and that utility pole, strike that, the utility pole that's right here, has been hit no fewer than 6 times, 3 times of which cars end up in the wetland. So the guardrail will actually keep people on the road.
The entire project is in the buffer zone, it is not in the floodplain. All the work associated with the project will be outside, there'll be no impacts to any of the resource areas, and all the work will be confined to be within the town's right of way.
Thank you. Not to be concise here, but we have 5 minutes.
Did I do okay?
And real things, you did an excellent job. Does the commission wanna schedule a site visit on this, or are we comfortable with this? We
Be
wanna
nice if we
schedule a
could
site
close
visit?
tonight, but
Or if we wanna close tonight, but I don't think we have enough time to go through the conditions this evening, unfortunately.
I have no problem leaving it open so long as we can close and get the decision at the next meeting.
Okay.
That meets our timetable, and that would also provide an opportunity, if anybody does a site walk, it comes back to the question, we can answer it before the next meeting.
It's a good idea to straighten up Berlin Road. People do tend to
yeah.
put a stop sign there so that they stop, you know, because they,
Yeah, let's do that.
you know, they go through there and it's like chicken. You know, first one in, last one out. Well, last one in, first one out, who knows what the hell.
All right, I'd like to make a motion that we continue the notice of intent for Wattaquatic Hill Road, proposed replacement of a partially collapsed stone, and HDP culvert. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Oh, you have to do a time and place, so at 7:15 in the building.
Oh, sorry, at 7:15, in the Houghton Building. Do I hear a second? All those in favor?
And during the hiatus for the 2 weeks, could we ask that Rebecca and I, flush out the comments we have, that we can have them prepared well in advance for you folks at the next meeting, so there aren't any questions at the last minute?
Yeah. We can do that. Thank you very much. We'll see you on the 18th.
If we take a site visit,
Just go out there and walk around.
It's
Pretty easy to find.
As long as you don't have a quorum, if anybody wants to do that,
Yeah.
just give me a call, I can put it all in context and describe it to you right on the ground.
sounds
Let's try to not do it during morning or afternoon commute. So
Yeah,
we
that's
don't
a-
get-
Really?
Yeah.
How are you gonna control the traffic down there?
That's a,
That's another
that's
thought.
we were just talking about.
We're gonna have to go.
Yeah, we
back.
gotta run, and they're gonna yell at
The biggest part of the
supervisor.
project is traffic control, for sure.
Thanks, guys.
Folks.
Yeah, no, thank you both.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good night.
So the brief update I have for Taggart is we're at the appraisal stage, we'll be out on site, communicating the appraisal on Tuesday, and we'll move on from there. The LVP will be going to the award ceremony tomorrow, myself and the town administrator, and our environmental forum feedback. We read the Bolton Independent, it was in the paper, a lot of great feedback. I had emails from almost everyone who attended that said this was great, we're glad the conversation started. And I hope Jeff read my little blurb on in your packet, and unfortunately I have to cut the big thank you short. short, but our lovely volunteer land steward had to step down, and we thank him for all the lovely work he's done.
Send you a bill.
But, so that will be posted in the paper, and then we'll be going through that process again. We have, the only piece of mail we got was the forestry cutting plan for DP property on Till Road. It has been signed off on by, the state after being revised. So that's where that is. And I just relayed the exact same comments that we had already saved for the first one, unless anyone has anything additional, but, okay. So that was
Thank
mine.
you, thank you, thank you.
37.
It's by that stop sign, you do it for
All good?
Yep,
All right.
I'll go with the last time.
I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn. Oh,
first.
do you want me to get the minutes, or did anybody have questions on the minutes?
Done.
Issues? Because too late now. All right. In that case, I'd like to make a motion that we approve our December 23rd and January 14th, or December 23rd, 2019, and January 14th, 2020 meeting minutes as submitted.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the February 4th meeting of the Bolton Conservation Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.